Good morning, Facebook. Apologize for being a few minutes late here. Joining us this morning is Orlando Scott, running for the 7th District County Commission. My name is Chuck Fagan, and this is a special presentation of the Better Savannah page on Facebook, where we'll be interviewing as many candidates running for the county commission as possible. We should be joined by Commissioner Yusuf Shabazz in the running for election back to the 5th District Commission post shortly, who is running coming back from handling something at the restaurant, as of course many in the 5th District know. Better Savannah is the Chatham County area's leading independent expenditure committee focused on progressive public policy outcomes here at the local level. Last year in the City of Savannah elections, we supported 7 candidates, 6 of whom went on to win their elections at City Hall, and we're hoping to do the same in the county elections this year. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Orlando Scott introduce himself. Please take about 2 to 3 minutes, Orlando, here, and tell us about yourself and why you're running for the 7th District.
Yes, and good morning. And first and foremost, thank you, Chuck, and thank you, John, for putting these series of interviews together and giving the candidates a chance to communicate their vision, their platforms to the masses out here. So, again, as Chuck stated, my name is Orlando Scott, and I'm running for the Chatham County Commissioner District 7 seat. I was born and raised here in Savannah, Georgia. Spent all but 10 years of my life here in the county. Married to a wonderful wife, Tanya, and 2 great kids, Olivia and Andre. Currently, I'm a multi-unit leader with a national retailer. I cover 15 stores in Metro Savannah and Low Country, South Carolina. Have tremendous amount of experience in leadership, building teams, fiscal responsibility, hiring, staffing, training, developing, all of that. So total of 15 years of probably more senior leadership and total of 22 years of retail management. So I'm very proud of that. Also, along with that, I'm a proud active member and Overcome by Faith Ministries. I'm the elder in the church, men's ministry leader for our ministry, also staff musician, and do a lot of things that I'm proud of in the church. One of the one of the biggest things that I'm so proud of, every year we have an annual Rock Fest where we give out typically 1,200 uniforms to deserving returning students in the Chatham County area, and we provide that free of charge. We will do a annual drive-in movie and also a carnival for them, and that's all free. So I'm one of the key organizers for that event. And it's been probably one of the biggest drives every year. It's one of the biggest drives in our city for the back to school uniform drive. My platform is very simple: proven infrastructure in the 7th District. I think there are challenges with our roads, drainages, and overpass sewers, and just staying ahead of that. And staying ahead of the growth. There's no secret. There's been tremendous growth in the 7th District. I can't deny that. I guess my pushback on that: are we really planning for the future, and are we setting up the foundation to really to stay ahead of our growth? So the infrastructure is one. 2 is increased police presence in our unincorporated West Chatham County, and I know we're going to have a little dialogue about that a little later on, so I won't go into that, but there's definitely a need as far as coverage in the area. There are gaps that I see every day. I live here, been in West Chatham County unincorporated for 10 years, and I have a long list of stories that I could tell you. But I do feel that there's a need for increased police presence. And then finally, the SPLOSH Fund, just making sure, of course, with everything that's going on with the COVID-19 and probably the budget crunches that we'll go through in the next several years, I want to make sure that our area is getting our fair share and we're being fiscally responsible for what we're spending in that fund.
And thank you for that introduction, Orlando. Commissioner Shabazz, I want to check and see if you can hear us. Okay, now that you're in the meeting.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner. How are you, sir?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I want to go ahead and get right to it. If you could take 3 or 4 minutes here and introduce yourself to the audience, tell us why you're running for election back to the 5th District seat that you held, and then we'll get right into the questions afterwards. Thank you again for joining us.
Yes, good morning, sir, and good morning to your audience and to the guests and the other hosts that's hosting the show. And I appreciate you allowing me this opportunity to come before you to lay out my platform and to interview with me. I live in the 5th District. My name is Yusuf Shabazz. I'm a candidate for the 5th District County Commission seat. I live in the 5th District my entire life. I'm a lifelong resident of the 5th District. Born and raised in Savannah, educated in the public school system here in Chatham County Public Schools. Attended the Savannah Area Vocational School of Savannah Tech, and with a associate's degree in drafting and design technology. Went on to matriculate Savannah State University, Savannah State College at that time, and I earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering Technology. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a business person, a business owner in this community. I consider myself to be a pillar of this community. And one of the names that people usually call me is Brother Shabazz, because I truly try to be a brother. And I love for my brothers and sisters those things what I love for myself. I believe in my platform is that of public safety, economic equality, criminal justice, social services, and better industry, job industry for Chatham County. And thank you.
And thank you for that introduction. Again, thank you to both of you, Orlando Scott and again, Commissioner Yusuf Shabazz, for joining us this morning to do these interviews. We have 3 sets today. We'll be interviewing Angela Washington, also running in the 5th District, and Tony Riley running in the 2nd District this afternoon at 1:30. And then this afternoon at 5:30, we'll be interviewing Mr. Gary Monroe and Mr. Kenny Adams together running in the 8th District. So again, we appreciate you joining us. Let's get right into the questions. Mr. Orlando Scott here, if you wouldn't mind starting us off. The recent city elections were very historic as voters did not return any incumbent that wasn't opposed. This included 2nd District Alderman Bill Durrance, 3rd District Alderman John Hall, and 6th District Alderman Tony Thomas. You're running against potentially the longest serving commissioner on the commission. What's your takeaway from the dramatic outcome of the city elections last year? And how do you think that's going to play out this year?
Wow. The city election this past year was dynamic. I mean, if you look at the at-large posts 1 and 2 and the switch-ups in districts 1, 2, 3, and 6, I mean, you saw, and not just here, but throughout the country, progressive kind of ideals that I believe constituents want to see. And you saw that play out here. These candidates, we have some quality candidates that came on the council. They're passionate about their city. And I believe Mayor Van Johnson, our new mayor, collectively, those candidates will make him a better leader because they're in office. And I believe we'll have the same wave on the county side this coming cycle. And you'll see that same type of progressive ideals play out here in the county.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Orlando. Commissioner Shabazz, your wife, Dr. Estella Shabazz, alderwoman for the 5th District in the city, was the only incumbent reelected in the elections last year. You know, similar question. What's your takeaway from the dramatic shift on city council? What do you think that means for the county elections this year?
I thought it was very dynamic. I thought that the registered voters of the city of Savannah and all the respective districts, they sent a clear message and a voice was heard. And I think in all of those races, the people were the deciders in that election. And also in this upcoming election for county commissioner and chairman and all these other positions that as the county elections, the people are also the ultimate deciders of the fate of these candidates who are running. And I oftentimes say that these seats don't belong to anyone. They belong to the people. They belong to the registered voters. They belong to the taxpayers of Chatham County. And you know, basically that's my take. I thought that the city elections were dynamic and it was exciting. And I'm looking toward the outcome of this particular election as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Commissioner Shabazz, a follow-up question. Almost every city council candidate voted or campaigned on bringing about term limits to city council aldermen for the district seats and the at-large. Do you see this as something that the county should follow suit with? For the commission, district seats should have 2 or maybe 3 term limits?
For the district seats, you're saying specifically the district seats should have term limits? Yes.
I think we're advocating for all seats to have term limits. Yes, sir.
I'm not in favor of that, sir. I'm in favor of the figureheads of those boards having term limits. For one, we look at the district seats as being the trees, and the chairman or the mayor being well, I look at the figurehead as being the trees and or the forest. The chairman or the mayor is the forest, and we're responsible for the trees. And since the figurehead is responsible for the entire forest, I believe that they should have term limits. I believe that if district aldermen and district commissioners are doing their job, I think that they should be allowed to stay there. And for stability of those boards, if we just wipe out everybody every 2 or 3 years, then there won't be any one to stabilize those boards. And some of the aldermen and alderwomen and commissioners are doing outstanding jobs in those respective areas. So I'm not in favor of term limits for the entire boards.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Brother Shabazz. Orlando Scott, you're running against a commissioner who was first elected when Floyd Adams was the mayor of Savannah to that county commission. Same question to you. Do you feel the same way as Commissioner Shabazz does? Do you think there should be term limits for all of the commissioners?
The race I'm in, but I think it makes a difference in the way you serve if you know you're only going to be in office for a period of time and you're going to leave. And I'll put it that simple. The tough decisions around fiscal issues will be made. There's less chance for corruption, and there's a sense of urgency when you're sitting in those seats. So I guess there's an argument that you can make that by getting rid of tenured elected officials, you somehow lose some institutional knowledge or expertise. I don't know. I don't know. I think when people have been doing something for a while, you kind of become complacent. You lose your edge, sense of entitlement, and quite frankly, a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people just making a lot of noise, taking up space. So the answer to that question, 2 terms for chairman and no more than 3 terms for the district representatives. You made a point that when my incumbent that I'm running against got in office, Floyd Adams was the mayor. If you go back even further, 1992, when the previous commissioner was in office, that's almost 30 years. That's almost 30. Think about it, 30. I think that was John Rosaka's final year in office, and I think Sir Mix-a-Lot had the number one song on the radio that summer.
Sure.
There's time for change. And there's definitely benefits to having fresh leadership in that position.
Great, thank you for that answer, Orlando Scott.
Can I give it up?
Yeah.
Can I respond?
Go ahead, Brother Shabazz. You would like to respond? Quickly, please. Go ahead.
I think once you're elected to office, you have a different perspective to that. But when you seek it off, it's easy for you to say that. I say that because of individuals like Dr. Priscilla Thomas. She served several years on the county commission, and she did an excellent job. And I think that decision should be left up to the rest of the voters on whether their aldermen or commissioners are voted out of office and not just a term limit.
I appreciate that follow-up answer, Commissioner Shabazz. Let's move on to a question. I want to start with you, Orlando Scott, here. The city of Savannah is the largest municipality, though I'm not sure how much of it is actually in your district that you're running for. Nevertheless, the largest single amount of taxpayers is in this municipality. City of Savannahans, the Savannahans here in the city pay city tax, county tax, and school board tax. What are you going to do to forge a closer working relationship with the largest municipality in Chatham County? And what do you see as a productive relationship looking like?
Well, for me, I represent, I have very little representation with the city of Savannah. So the biggest part of my district would be Pooler, Bloomingdale, and Garden City, along with unincorporated West Chatham County. But I guess you can relate that to all of these municipalities. I think it's just, being present, building the relationships. Even before the shutdown and the stay in shelter and shelter in place, I attended a few Pooler Council meetings just and I'm not a resident of Pooler, but I want to know what the issues were and what were some of the things that were being presented there. So I think you have to be present and build those relationships and take down the silos that are created throughout the municipalities. You saw it with the police merger that I knew from the offset it would be a disaster because no one trusted anyone. And that broke down. So take down the silos, have the trust, have the communication, and I think those relationships will foster and you'll get more accomplished.
Thank you for that response, Orlando. Commissioner Shabazz, arguably you might be in the best position to forge a better relationship with the working city government as you have to go home to a sitting alderwoman every night. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on where the city and the county need to go to have a more productive relationship. And I'd love for you to address your experience here because you were on the commission during a time when the demerger started to become a reality instead of just a possibility. Talk about the relationship between the city and the county governments for the next 4 years.
Yes, thank you. And if you wouldn't have made that comment about me coming home or whatever, no one would have never known that. But anyway, I'm in favor of establishing a working relationship with the city county counterpart for the 5th district. And also the 2 aldermen at large, as well as the mayor of the city of Savannah, having a working relationship and a good rapport to get things done, to have a cohesive relationship with city and county government. I've always had that, and I was always in favor of that. Even during the time of the demerger, I was never in favor of the two departments breaking up or divorcing. I was always in favor of them staying together for one, the taxpayers, looking out for the taxpayers, not putting undue pressure and burden on the taxpayers. And my city counterpart felt the same way. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer there. Commissioner Shabazz, I want to stay with you here on this next question. In SPLOST 7, I want to switch over to SPLOST for the next few questions here to both of you, but starting with you, Commissioner Shabazz. In SPLOST 7, which was voted on last year, Chatham County did not include any funding for affordable housing, while the city of Savannah included $10 million in its SPLOST 7 portion for affordable housing. Would you work to see some funding for affordable housing in a future SPLOST? And if 6 years from now is too long to wait, where else are you going to get the funding from to afford an affordable housing initiative?
I'm in favor of affordable housing, not just affordable housing, but I'm in favor of housing, decent housing. It's a difference, because all houses that are affordable are not necessarily decent. I'm in favor of decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings, and I think that we should have to live or exist in decent conditions and affordable. For one, I think that the yearly income, it should be 30% of the yearly income of anyone who's working. That way they have other money for other expenses besides housing. Right now, people are paying up to 60 or 70% on housing, which is ridiculous. So there's definitely a need for affordable housing, and I'm in favor of the county putting funds in for affordable, decent housing.
I'm unmuted here. Sorry about that. Thank you for that response, Commissioner Shabazz. Mr. Orlando Scott, you live in the fastest growing, by many accounts, district in the county in terms of new homes being built, new developments. When anybody thinks of Pooler, they think of long traffic on Pooler Parkway, trying to get to the outlets or to a restaurant. Do you think that the county should be supporting an affordable housing program in the unincorporated areas like the city's trying to do?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So we don't have a lot of the challenges in the urban city limits, but with the growth, to your point, with the growth in housing and also in businesses, we're going to run into a wall with this issue. So I'll give you an example. If you go across the bridge in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I'm over there a couple of times a week, drive down 278, they've seen tremendous growth. You'll see restaurants, shops, bars, hotels all along down going to the ocean. In the summer months, those service industries have the hardest time staffing those facilities. And it's mainly because there's no workforce housing over there. So we're pulling from Jasper County, we're pulling from the city of Beaufort, and we're trying to staff this whole area of this booming municipality. And you're going to see that same issue if we don't bring up the conversation around affordable housing, workforce housing, however you want to call it, in this area. We're going to, because every time I see a new warehouse go up, million square foot warehouse go up, the first question I'm asking, how are you going to staff it? There's no frontline people to staff it. So yes, we need an initiative to talk about affordable housing, where as we're building the these companies, we have appropriate staffing for it.
And I think we'll come back to this issue in relation to new funding sources to potentially fund these initiatives in a little while here on the questions. But sticking here with SPLOST, Orlando, I'm going to give this question to you first, and I'm going to bring it over to Commissioner Shabazz. Yes, sir.
Can I say this?
Go ahead.
I think an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. I think that the idea of a livable wage would be good, because then you would alleviate of at least $15 an hour for county staff, and that it would alleviate the idea of affordable housing to a degree. When you have
honestly, Commissioner Shabazz, I mean, you make probably one of the strongest points we've been trying to make for the last few years here, is that the wages in the public sector and in the tourism sector are far too low to be supporting any type of, even workforce housing, let alone affordable housing. When the average sales price in the 7th district is, $235,000, I think, it makes it very hard to try and attain that dream out there. And then even say in the 5th district, there's just simply not enough homes available that, might be, say, 180,000 or less that people could afford to buy or live in. And not to mention all the people who would just want to rent, but need a good place to live to rent, and that, $15 an hour could afford. So I really appreciate you making that point about living wages and affordable wages, that would help counterbalance some of the affordable housing issues. We're going to come back to this. All right. We'll come back to this topic when we talk a little bit about new funding sources. But I want to talk a little bit about SPLOST, the state law, and this emergency pandemic. As we all know, we are in the throes of a global pandemic. It's going to be a long time before we're out of this, especially in terms of budgeting. But in terms of the SPLOST funds that we have right now, by some estimates, there's $250 million or more between the city and the county just sitting in accounts, bearing interest for capital projects that may or may not need to move forward right now. Mr. Scott, would you support changes in the state law that would allow counties to quickly and more efficiently reappropriate funds for projects that are no longer deemed feasible or in the best interest of county voters, especially during emergencies like this?
Right. That's a great question, but I would absolutely support that. So if you think about, especially during state of emergency, if you think about what's going on today with the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'll give you an example. In my line of work, at the beginning of the year, we had all these great initiatives. We were going to improve facilities, system upgrades at 5,200 stores, multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns for professional teams, and enhancements to our rewards program. We're going to buy a well-known battery brand and align it with our company. As soon as this pandemic happened, all of that stopped. Like, nobody's building new stores. It's not happening. So that money was appropriated for urgent needs, helping payroll, supplies for our teams, things like that. So we have to, I think the corporate world gets it. A lot of times in our county and city, we don't think like that, but I think there should be some verbiage and some flexibility that we can reappropriate funding in our SPLOST fund in case of emergency.
Thank you, Orlando Scott, for that answer. Commissioner Shabazz, along the same lines, I don't believe that the Chatham County government has had a full-time lobbyist since maybe the first half of your term, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. You might be able to confirm that for us today. But I know for sure during this term of the last 4 years, there's been no full-time lobbyist. Do you think we should have a lobbyist full-time lobbying for these types of changes at the state capitol?
Yes, I think that we should have a lobbyist. I think that we should have someone advocating for Chatham County government for the legislative agenda toward the delegation for the Chatham County. I think that you need to have some boots on the ground to get things done, because we can't go out there as individuals. We can't go out there. But a full-time lobbyist would be more effective in getting things done for Chatham County. And during my term, the lobbyist was terminated. And when I asked the question of why was the lobbyist terminated, it was said that we didn't need one. And I disagreed with that. Oftentimes I go against the grain with stuff that's not morally correct. Those things are just not correct. Those things that don't sit too well with me. And I know they don't sit too well with the registered voters if they had an idea of what was going on. And one of the reasons why I think that the lobbyist was fired is because of the experience that the chairman had with the state legislator. And he felt as though that was not effective. But I always believe that you should have someone lobbying for you. And when you do, you have more acting on your behalf than you have acting against you.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Go ahead.
At the state level, that is. At the state level, that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I have another question for you, Commissioner Shabazz. The 5th District has a large portion of unincorporated Chatham County into it, as well as the city of Savannah. The Chatham County Police Department, which again was started in the last 4 years, right, has approximately 110 officers to service a population of 92,000 people. That's a ratio of 1.3 officers per 1,000, which puts the Chatham County SSD district, the Special Services District, on par with, say, rural Montana or Wyoming in terms of the number of police officers per 1,000 residents. Do you think that's too low? The average is 1.5 or 1.6. Do you think that's too low? Should the Chatham County Police Department hire an additional 20 or 30 officers?
Well, part of my platform in terms of public safety is to support allocating more funding to Chatham County Police Department to fill in for the shortfalls of the demerger. I'm in favor of adding more police to the police force, but in no way do I think that solves crime. I think that when we deal with the economic parameters, the economic development in the communities, especially the marginalized and the poor areas, that when we deal with economic development, then the stronger levels of economic development, then you have low levels of crime. And it's vice versa. Wherever you have high levels of crime, you can look and see that there are low levels of economic development. But I'm not so much in favor of hiring more police. I would go to those institutions or entities that's already in place, like the Sheriff Department, and have the Sheriff Department fill in for those shortfalls that we have with more officers. In fact, I thought it was a bad idea from the beginning to demerge. For one, I thought it put undue pressure on the taxpayers, because in construction and engineering, they teach us in engineering, economics, and construction that you estimate those things that you see and those things that you don't see. When you're estimating something, a building, just because you don't see the wires behind that wall or the plumbing behind that wall, don't mean that that stuff is not back there, that those elements are not back there. Same way with the demerger, in terms of police cars and precincts and all those other things that they said that they had that would make it easier for a smooth transition. You had more things that was involved in terms of breaking up from that relationship. And I was not in favor of it at the time because the crime level was too high. We had several police shootings, we had several homicides in the community, and there was no time to be breaking up at that time. So I'm in favor of the sheriff, getting with the sheriff and having the sheriff deal with that.
I think that's a really good point to bring up the Sheriff's Department in the context of that answer, Commissioner Shabazz and or Mr. Orlando Scott. I want to throw this similar question to you. I don't know how much of the unincorporated SSD district is in the 7th, but I imagine there's enough that you need to be focused on this issue. Again, there's approximately 110 officers to service 92,000 residents in that district, and that's an average of 1.3 per thousand, which is at least a quarter point shy of what the average for a suburban setting market for policing would be. Do you think we need to hire some more officers to get that average in line with the rest of suburban communities in America? And then also, please address some of the thoughts that Commissioner Shabazz brought about economic development and its relation to crime and poverty.
Well, absolutely. We have to get that number, that ratio higher. From 1.3, at least get it up to 1.5, and I would guess in my area that would give me another 8 or 9 officers in unincorporated West Chatham County. There is a need. So when I moved here in unincorporated West Chatham County 10 years ago, there was very little crime, very little. And again, we don't have the challenges as the in the city limits, but I, just off the top of my head, down, nice shopping center down the street, we had an armed robbery where a gentleman came in the back door of a sports bar and held up someone, ended up shooting a patron in broad daylight. This was in the middle of the day, CVS on the corner, armed robbery. Subways and petty thefts in residential areas, speeding. So, and there's very little coverage. I don't think I've seen a patrolling officer since the beginning of the year out here. So there's an issue. We have to find ways. I know the budget's going to be tight. I definitely like Commissioner Shabazz's idea about incorporating the sheriff pool and helping us patrol the area. That's definitely a viable option, but we got to find ways to fund it, especially with the economic growth. There's going to be another, once we get past this, there'll be another boom of housing, probably more to the southwest area, and we got to figure that out. We can't, it's impossible that we can't use the same ratio of coverage that we've used going back a decade ago. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Orlando Scott. We're running short on time, gentlemen. We've got about maybe 10 or 15 minutes maximum left here to the kind of time we both agreed to. I know that we were running just a little bit late this morning as we're the first broadcast of the day. But I want to finish on talking about the county budget, the lack of revenues that are sure to follow with this recession brought on by the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Let's start with you, Commissioner Shabazz. Since 1990, many counties and cities have implemented impact fees on new construction. Would you support impact fees on new construction in the unincorporated county to help fund capital projects for the expansive growth that's going to take place?
I would be in favor of impact fees with a threshold of as long as the projects are over a certain amount. And also, I would want a portion of those impact fees to be utilized to improve the condition of the marginalized in our community. I always have to put that in front of me because it is because of the disenfranchised communities and the marginalized communities that I'm at. Because of them, I am. And they're the one that make it possible for me to do the things that I do, not just politically, but economically as well. So I'm in favor of it as long as there's a threshold in terms of the amount of money that the projects bring in, and also that a contingency be given to improve the marginalized communities.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Commissioner Shabazz. Mr. Orlando Scott, similar question, and just some more statistics for you. Chatham County issued 2,000 building permits last year in 2019. If you say that the average project was 3,000 square feet, That's a total of 6 million square feet that was permitted last year by the county. If you had an average impact fee cost of $2.7 to $2.70 per square foot, that would be about $16.5 million in new revenue for the county. Tell us your thoughts on new impact fees on new construction, specifically since your district, as well as the FIB, contains some of the vast lands that will be developed with new subdivisions over the next decade.
I'm absolutely in favor of impact fees. When developers come in and build these massive subdivisions, I think it's only right that they carry some of the taxpayers' burden. I mean, helping with road improvements, building parks, which is needed in West Unincorporated Chatham, fire stations, police stations. I mean, they're making money buying land. The days of coming in, clearing land, taking down all the trees, and running away with the money, are gone. So they have to burden some of that cost, and I'm absolutely in favor. Maybe we give incentives to someone that's building workforce housing or in my area, but I think holistically we have to have those fees, especially with the budget crunches that are coming.
Thank you for that quick answer, Mr. Orlando Scott here. I'm going to stick with you on the first answer for this question, but along the same lines, Mr. Orlando Scott here, the Port of Savannah is a big economic generator here in the county. The Georgia Ports Authority has said that they will double its capacity over the next 7 to 8 years. Despite the success of the port, there's no direct payments to either Chatham County or any of the main municipalities that are affected by that growth. Given the impacts of the port on our community with congestion, road damage, and pollution, do you feel that the county should start negotiating with the port for permanent recurring revenue, i.e. a port container fee?
That's a good question. So the port is in the county, but when you say negotiate, I think it would be a waste of time. I want to go back to your other point, because the state runs the port. The state runs the port. We have no control and no say so. Maybe some influence, but no control. But to your point about the lobbyists, now I would bring a lobbyist in to partner with the state officials and the powers that be that can influence our port. And you're right, double in growth in the next 10 years. That's a massive amount of revenue and potential income for our city and our county, excuse me. So I think we should have played a part in that, and for different reasons. But definitely the lobbyist piece, I would love to see that happen for that specific reason. That specific reason alone would be our return on investment.
Sure. I agree with you on the lobbyist point, Commissioner, and I want to give you a chance to respond after Commissioner Shabazz weighs in, Orlando. But Commissioner Shabazz, the majority of the roads that lead in and out of the port at some point are under county control. If the Georgia Ports Authority will not negotiate in good faith with the county government of Chatham County, would you go as far as to threaten toll roads in and out of the port in order to get permanent revenue off of the port?
I don't subscribe to the belief that nothing could be done. Something always could be done. If there's a will, there's a way.
That's a good point.
I'm in favor of. I support container fees and tonnage fees, as well as environmental impact fees as well. The amount of money that the port is generating, something has to be done to give Chatham County something to operate more. We're talking about these shortfalls and all this stuff, and there's a revenue generating source right there for the impact fees, container fees, and environmental impact fees. You got money for the police department. You got money for that. You got money for decent housing, affordable housing, workforce housing. You got money for several things just with that alone in terms of fees geared at these Georgia Port Authorities. and that would benefit.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you for Orlando. I want to give you a chance to jump back in because I think this is a very crucial decision point for the next decade of Chatham County. And I think there's some different viewpoints, and I would say that Better Savannah subscribes, more to the latter that Commissioner Shabazz suggested, that there's really nothing that's impossible. It's about what you're willing to do as a leader elected, and we appreciate both of you stepping up the run to potentially have to make these decisions for all of us, obviously. But I'd like to bring you back in and give you another crack at this question.
So nothing is that, and you're absolutely correct. Nothing is impossible, and working together. If we work together collectively, we can get a lot accomplished. Realistically, there are going to be crunches in our fiscal budget, and we can't get around that. This pandemic right now is very fluid. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of what ifs, and there's going to be a lot of divergence. You talk about the virus. We're not out of this. There's no guarantee we'll have a vaccine. Whether this comes back every year, there's not a flu vaccine. So companies and I deal with this every day. Companies are not going to, and organizations are not going to. They're not going to easily give up funding right now. No one's spending money. So we have to be realistic. Nothing is impossible. But I think, going back to your earlier point, that we do need an advocate for us that are fighting to get funded, that in the State House, that are fighting to get funded in Washington, and that's going to make a difference, in my opinion.
Thank you. A follow-up question, and I want to start with you, Commissioner Shabazz. Ultimately, during this budget crisis caused by COVID-19, ultimately we'll either have to raise revenues or we'll have to decrease costs. And decrease costs means eliminating services. So will you commit today to the 5th District voters that you will not raise property taxes until you've exhausted all other revenue generating sources, like the examples we've discussed here today?
Yes, I will commit to not raising taxes. And as opposed to raising taxes, I'm in favor of budget cuts. I'm in favor of restricting funds that you give to quasi organizations as well, which would be good for the budget. I'm in favor of reserves for the county. I think that a good county management and county government should have reserves on hand for a situation like this right here. Yeah. Yes, for at least 6 to 8 months in advance. So I'm in favor of not raising taxes. I never will be in favor of raising taxes.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Orlando Scott, same question. Ultimately, this is going to come down to, do you need to raise revenues to keep services going, or will you cut services? Will you commit to not raising the property mill rate for the M&O budget unless you've exhausted all of these other revenue sources that we've started to discuss today?
I will go on record, like Commissioner Shabazz, say I will not raise property taxes. Mill rates, we may adjust where we're appropriating the funds, but I will not put that burden on my constituents. What I would like to do is maybe look at some of the big dollar capital budgets. I wouldn't touch any infrastructure kind of dirty work like roads, sewage, and all of that, but maybe look at some of the big capital budgets, and is it necessary right now? Is a new courthouse necessary? And I think the city should do the same on their end with some of the things that they're dealing with. Because again, we're dealing with something we never dealt with before, and we don't know. We don't know what the requirements for if we have to rebuild. No one knows. So why spend all this money waste money and to go back. And the money's not including the operating expenses that would show. It's a lot of money. So no, I wouldn't raise property taxes. Find other ways. Maybe cut out some big capital budgets. Yes.
Great. Thank you for that answer. This will be our last policy question, and it deals with the Savannah Economic Development Authority. The County Commission makes several appointments to CEDA. I believe during a 4-year term, you're likely to make at least 3, maybe 4 appointments to the board. Savannah Economic Development Authority puts together deals on behalf of Chatham County and the City of Savannah and the school board, which allow for property tax abatements. These deals are put together in return for job creation. However, the job creation is never verified outside of CEDA itself. There's no independent audit on the number of jobs created and the amount of those wages. Would you support amending the county ordinance that establishes CEDA with the interagency powers that would now require an annual independent audit of CEDA contracts for the jobs and salaries created? Mr. Orlando Scott, why don't you take an answer on that first, and then we'll go over to Commissioner Shabazz.
I would, as a county representative, so we appoint, if I'm not mistaken, we appoint board members to CEDA. I think we have to hold those board members accountable and make sure appropriate funding and appropriate actions that the businesses that are coming in that promise to do all this stuff is really doing. So that's my stance on that. We have to have better. We need to fill these boards that we're required to fill. And we need to be very selective about who's going in those boards and who's following up on the initiatives that were set forth. So that's my stance on that. I don't know if I answered your question.
It's okay. Commissioner Shabazz, you've been on the commission before. I believe you voted for an appointment to this board, an authority. There's a lot of the same names. People who've been around the business community for a long time tend to get these appointments. And again, they are making property tax abatement deals on behalf of the county government to attract industry. Would you support requiring an independent audit every year of CEDA?
Yeah, well, that's one of my platform items is transparency. One of the definition of transparency is being able to see, and it's accountability. I haven't really seen no results of anything that they said that they would do in terms of jobs, in terms of economic development. I really haven't seen any evidence of it in my 4 years of being on that board. They put on a pretty good gala, and that's about it. So I'm in favor of amending the ordinance to oversee that. Right.
Thank you for the answer. And again, I want to thank both of you for joining us. We're a few minutes over the time that we committed to. Commissioner Shabazz, I want to give you, 2 to 3 minutes here to just give some conclusion thoughts. Tell the voters again who you are, why you're running for the 5th District to return to the seat that you held about 5 years ago. And again, thank you both for joining us. If you'll take us to some thoughts here, Commissioner Shabazz.
Yes. Thank you once again for allowing me to come on the show and giving me this opportunity. Like I said before, I'm a lifelong resident of the 5th District. I'm a husband, a father, business owner, graduate of Savannah State University, as well as Savannah Technical Institute. I look at myself as being a pillar of this community. I must feel something. The 5th District is near and dear to my heart. And one of the ways you can tell that the 5th District is near and dear to my heart is that I live here. And also, I chose to raise children, a family here in the district. I was raised up here in the Liberty City area, the 5th District area. And I raised my children in maybe 2 streets over from where I grew up at. So it's near and dear to me. I feel that I'm the best. In fact, I know that I'm the best candidate, best choice for this position. For one, the experience, I've been there before. I can hit the ground running. I don't have to be trained. I'm an engineer, which brings a skill set to this board and to this position. I can hit the ground running. I have a plan or agenda for this district and for the county, and that is economic development, public safety, economic development, criminal justice, social services, and better job industry. I'm independent. For one, I'm independent. I don't dance to anyone's tune. And that way I'm able to speak truth to power when it's time for me to speak truth to power, and I will go up against the status quo. I'm not one that just go along just to get along. I'm not bought and paid for. I'm a champion of this community, and I will fight for the legitimate goals and aspirations of this district. And also, once again, I'd like for you to vote for me on June 9th. Please go to the poll. Please go to my website, yousufshabazz.com. And if you like, and I would encourage you to donate to my campaign as well.
Thank you. Thank you again, Commissioner Yusuf Shabazz, running to return to the commission seat in the 5th District. Appreciate you joining us. Mr. Orlando Scott, again, thank you as well for joining us. If you'll give us a few minutes here to wrap up, remind people what you're running for, how they can get in contact with you or find you online is always a good thing, and then I will take us out of the broadcast. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Better Savannah, Chuck, John, for putting on these series of interviews. I think it's great, and it's a great, again, platform for the candidates to get their message out. So I'm Orlando Scott. Again, I'm running for Chatham County Commissioner for District 7. District 7 is one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Georgia, and I think this next election cycle will be critical to have the right leader to make the tough fiscal decisions. And I'm very, have a lot of experience in doing that. We don't need business as usual. All my professional career, I've managed millions of dollars in revenue and operating expenses and have been very successful. And this is what is needed right now in this day and time. So transitioning from the role I had to the commissioner for District 7 seat with District 7 seat will be no different. So remember me, Orlando Scott, vote for me on June 9th. My website is www.votefororlandoscott.com. I'm on Facebook, and my election page is votefororlandoscott.com. Vote for Orlando Scott for District 7. So you can connect with me through Facebook, and feel free to donate directly to the site on the website there. So thank you, and thank you again, Chuck.
Absolutely. And thank you again, Orlando Scott and former Commissioner Yusuf Shabazz for joining us here this morning. A few housekeeping notes. I want to remind everybody that we will be live back here on the page at just about 1:30 p.m. We'll be interviewing another candidate for the 5th District, Ms. Angela Washington, and a candidate for the 2nd District, Mr. Tony Riley. This afternoon at 5:30, we'll be interviewing both candidates for the 8th Commission District, Mr. Gary Monroe and Mr. Kenny Adams. Also, a few housekeeping notes. On Saturday, May 16th, we will be hosting a forum and debate for both the district attorney's race primaries and the Chatham County chairman's race in the Democratic primary nomination. Those announcements will be forthcoming. Next weekend, Saturday, May 2nd, is going to be our last Saturday for district county commission candidate interviews. If you are running for Chatham County, especially if you're running in a contested election in the May primary, or the June 9th primaries rather, please reach out to us. We have reached out to every candidate that's in a contested primary just about. So again, if we've missed you or if you haven't gotten an email from us, please get back to us relatively quickly so we can get you scheduled in. The series of our interviews, forums, and debates will end in the next few weeks so that we can make any decisions on endorsements and get the vote out, because most voters will receive their ballots via mail in the 2nd or 3rd week of May. So this election is different than anyone before. We want to say thank you to all of the candidates who have stepped up to run for office this year. And again, thank you both gentlemen for joining us here this morning. And with that, I'm going to take us out. Appreciate it, guys. Have a great Saturday, Facebook.